Hello, everybody. This is Gerald Celente. Oh, what a day today, November 9th, 2022, the day after the midterm elections. And we are so fortunate, and I mean this with all my heart, my soul, to have with us Judge Andrew Napolitano, who has an analysis of the political system that we have and how it relates to what this country was founded upon and what the political system's become. And following last night's midterm election, and he wrote this article before the election, it nails it perfectly how low this country has sunk and the skunks that have destroyed our liberty, our peace, and our freedom. Judge Napolitano, thank you so much for being here today.
Gerald, it's a pleasure to be with you, my dear friend. No matter what we're talking about, it's always a pleasure.
You wrote this article, Republicans and the Growth of Government. And the big deal yesterday in the midterm elections was that there was going to be a reversal of the ruling party that was in charge, and there was going to be a big change coming about, and the Republicans were going to be taking control of, well, not only the Senate, but also the House. And I want to read to you the headline article in CNN before the polls closed yesterday. So it was yesterday evening. Exit polls. Inflation is issue number one. Live updates. Voters are broadly unhappy with the state of the nation and hold largely negative views of Biden, preliminary exit polls show. That didn't happen. So you wrote this article about the Republicans, and I said the same thing. The cover of the Trends Journal says it the same. You know, vote for the person you hate the least or something like, you know, right. No matter who wins, we go, the military industrial complex wins. We go to war.
Yes.
And we had no connection in writing what we did with the cover and what you wrote with this article. So please explain and tell the people.
Well, we must have a telepathic connection because we agree on everything from tomato sauce to espresso.
Two of the most important things in life.
Right. But fundamentally, we agree that democracy does not protect freedom. It enables the government to repress our freedom, to confiscate our wealth, and redistribute our wealth. And Republicans are as complicit in this as Democrats. My piece argues that we don't have two political parties in this country. We have one party. It's the big government party.
Yep.
It has a Republican wing that likes war and taxes and borrowing and corporate welfare, and the Democratic wing that likes war and taxes and borrowing and individual welfare. Together, they have written laws that frustrate any type of third or fourth party from having ballot access to compete with them. And their greatest goals are to share power. Well, 2 years you're in power, 2 years we're in power, but we'll scratch each other's backs. Thomas Jefferson, who I loved, Alexander Hamilton, who, had I been around at the time, would have been a fierce opponent of, agreed on one thing in their lives publicly. And that is, when the public treasury becomes a public trough, the public will send to the seat of government only those who will bring back as much of the pie as they can. And that's where we are today. And it happens on local, state, and federal level. So since Woodrow Wilson borrowed $30 billion to finance World War I, $30 billion that we still owe back, and on which we've paid $15 billion in interest charges. This is unbelievable. Only the federal government could pay a 50%, 50 interest rate. Since then, the big government party, Republicans and Democrats, have borrowed and spent $31 trillion more than they've collected in taxes. This is the debt with which they've saddled us. When Republicans are in, their spending goes to the military industrial complex, into other Republican favorites. When the Democrats are in, their spending goes to grab bag giveaways and Democratic presidents, but favorites. But under both parties, the government continues to grow, taxes go up, debt grows, liberty is repressed, wealth is redistributed. It doesn't matter which one of them is in power. That's the thesis of the piece that I wrote. And the public will now see that. It appears today, the day after Election Day, that the Democrats will keep the Senate, the Republicans will very narrowly, not by the huge margins they had boasted they were going to get, but very narrowly keep the House. You're not going to see any reduction in spending or reduction in the repression of liberty whatsoever. You're going to see it just as bad.
You know, talking about war, you know, there was virtually no debate going on between either party about the Ukraine war.
You're exactly right. You and I, just two of us, talked more about Ukraine than Republican candidates running for the Senate or running for the House
combined.
And I got to tell you, yesterday, our mutual friend, Colonel Douglas McGregor, revealed on my podcast that his sources told him that when Jake Sullivan, the president's national security advisor, was speaking to his Russian counterpart, he threatened him and basically said, we have 40,000 troops in Poland and there are 50,000 Polish troops. Here's a couple of red lines. Go over those red lines and you're going to meet our troops. What?
That's what that guy, Jake Sullivan, boy, he looks like he could be the great grandson of Goebbels.
Yeah.
You know,
I feel sorry for him. He does look that way. He's a Hillary Clinton hack.
I know. And arrogant.
Came that close to getting indicted in the Hillary Clinton email scandals, during which, of course, nobody was indicted.
Yeah.
Now he's got this powerful job with Biden. If Biden sent him to threaten Putin, then Biden is crazier than we thought. If this kid, and he's a young man, went there on his own to threaten Putin, and the Secretary of Defense and Secretary of State didn't know about it, well, then he's a rogue actor who's going to drag us into World War III. Either way, if what Doug McGregor reported is accurate, it's horrific. But to your point, nobody debates war and peace.
None.
We're going to spread democracy. War does not spread democracy. It spreads killing. That's what war does. It kills. You didn't hear that debated in America in the past 2 months.
No. And, you know, they had this line, you know, God bless America. I was driving up to Lenox, Mass. the other day, and a person had one out on their lawn. What God blesses war?
No God blesses war.
God does not bless America if America blesses war. Right. I mean, you know, the hypocrisy of this. And again, it was never a issue in this midterm election with the people of running for Congress, you know, the Senate. And, you know, you go on to say over here about this is the same Republican Party that gave us the Department of Education and its 4,400 bureaucrats. The Department of Homeland Security, 240,000 federal cops. The National Security Agency, the NSA, 60,000 domestic spies. The CIA, 21,000 foreign spies and its secret war. The FISA court and its domestic surveillance and the wars in Iraq, Afghanistan, and their $2 trillion tab. By the way, I've heard bigger than $2 trillion. And neither declared by Congress. In 110 years, the big government party in Congress has spent $51 trillion more than the feds have collected in tax dollars, which you mentioned before. When you look at the total debt, by the way, you know, with Social Security and other things, the numbers are up to about $226 billion.
The numbers are astronomical.
26 trillion. Yeah.
The numbers are mind-boggling. Man, the way they've written these laws, it's nearly impossible to reverse them. So the government collects between 2.5 and 3 trillion a year. 90% of that goes out immediately to the Defense Department and to the redistribution of wealth. The government doesn't even have to vote on it. Each Congress binds its future Congress. So there's really no stopping this unless you get a Congress full of Ron Pauls or Thomas Masseys that are just willing to bite the bullet. And as more and more people, there are a lot of good people that work in the military industrial complex, a lot of hardworking blue collar people that work for these industries. They would have to lose their jobs. Mom and pop on Social Security and Medicare, they would lose their income. I mean, they've created a level of dependency that would make it nearly impossible for there to be the political support to undo this. Only the collapse of the federal government would undo this.
You know, I have to tell you, I thought I call them the Democrats and the Repulsivans. I thought
By the way, nobody comes up with these words better than you do. The other day I heard you call Hillary Clinton Hitlery Clinton. I mean, I just don't think that way. All of a sudden, these words pop out of your mouth and they're hilarious.
Thank you. You know, it does, but it reflects who they are. You know, they're repulsive and they're crap. You know, and again, when you look at this system and what's happened, I really thought, by the way, that the Republicans would have taken more seats in both in the Senate and the House. I thought they would do better than they did. But then again, you look at the people that are running. It's you know, which am I going to vote for, Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse?
There you go. There you go.
It's a clown show.
Yeah.
And when you look at the whole situation, it's like you were voting for somebody in high school for running for class president, and they haven't left. They haven't left high school, and we haven't left high school because it's the same. The principal is in charge. The teachers are in charge. You're not allowed to have any kind of thinking on your own. You have to obey exactly what they tell you, and you have to pass a test and give the answers that they tell you that you must give. We haven't gotten out of high school.
We have not gotten out of that. You're right. You're right.
And
part of the problem in this country is the public school system and that mentality, which does not encourage creative thinking, which encourages obeisance to authority, which has guaranteed income, guaranteed clients, and no competition. That really, and this happens generation after generation after generation. What you just described, what you and I went through 60 years ago, 60, is similar to what these kids go through today. No creative thinking, just do what we tell you to do.
Yep.
Think the way we tell you to think.
And you really name it properly when you say it's not a public school system, it's a government school.
Oh, they hate that. There's a government high school not far from here, and every once in a while they ask me to speak there. And whenever I call it the government school system, I can see the looks on the faces of the teachers and the administrators. Like, oh, here we go again.
Yeah.
The kids resonate to it. They know I'm speaking truthfully, but their overlords don't want to hear it.
No. And you know, the thing is too, like when you're in high school, you know, I hated every day of school. I had nightmares, honest to God. I had nightmares about school into my mid-40s. Wow. That's how much I hated it. I ran away from kindergarten in the Bronx. I crossed the Boston Post Road at 4.5 years old. And they took me out because they know I'd be dead, you know. And so I hated every day of it. But and in thinking of when you were in high school, you heard, you know, when you go to college, it really changes. It didn't change. It was just high school, you know, extended, you know, the same kind of stuff. You know, there's not that freedom of being yourself, you know. So the whole system. Then, you know, going back to what you wrote over here, and you begin it by saying about your libertarian friends. Let me see. Most of my libertarian friends with whom I've spoke recently are hoping for a Republican victory. I'm not so sure I agree with them. Former Representative Ron Paul, the living American I admire most, I do too, by the way, and I've told him that to his face, is not sure either. He opined recently in an essay arguing that with the exception of blind opposition to all things, Joe Biden, thus slowing the pace of increased federal spending, the Republicans are not much better than the Democrats. You said it perfectly, and I've said it to you many, many times, that you are the person that should be running for president of the United States, and that we need a third-party system to break up this corrupt gang, this mob that's in charge now. And this country is not going to change unless that we have, this is America that invades what? How many 50 countries in the last, is 70 years, bringing freedom and democracy, and we're controlled by a crime syndicate, a one-party system with two names, and nobody else is allowed to get in there. And we fight and kill people all over the world for freedom and democracy when we don't have it right in front of our face. There's an article we wrote in the Trends Journal, so I could find it here. Oh, here we go. The journal came out yesterday. The Bigs own two-party system. Billionaires spend record amount in 2022 midterms. All right? If you don't have a lot of money, if you're not a member of the gang, if you don't have a Soros or somebody else dumping dough into you, you don't have any right to run for any office. This is America, bringing freedom and democracy all over the world, bombing the hell out of innocent people. When we don't have a taste of freedom and democracy, it's controlled by a crime syndicate.
Now, what you just said 20 years ago would have been considered an outlier. He's got a problem. Something's wrong with him. Today, we know that what you're saying is true. And there are many, many people who agree with us because with transparency, the government's flaws and faults and wars and warts and excesses become more apparent. When I used to call the government a criminal gang, people would, funny look like that. Now they laugh and they go, hey, you got a point. You got a point. I think I told you the local mayor who's a pig farmer is a decent human being. Got mad at me when I said, I pay all these real estate taxes. How about you in the next town over compete with each other for my taxes? Whoever gives me the most services for the less amount, I'll pay them taxes. He said, I never heard of anything more communistic than that.
Yeah.
Communistic? It's called capitalistic competition. The government hates competition.
When you look at all the agencies, and you mentioned some of them that the governments have put together, local, state, and federal, and all of the people that work for them, we pay them. Again,
Yes.
I call them bureaucrats. These are people that can't get a job in the real world in their profession, so they suck into the system. And they're the dumbest, and then they become the most arrogant.
Yes.
They tell you, I'll tell you what to do. Don't you know who I am? I'm some clown that you pay, and we pay them for them to tell us what to do. So these are the people that go out to vote. They go out to vote to keep their jobs and to keep the system that they're in going, because they don't want to go into the real world. Look what they did with again, showing the mentality and stupidity of the people. How can anybody vote for like a Witless Whitmer over there in Michigan and a DeWine? Where's he in Ohio? All these people that locked down your states, made up stupid laws. You got to close at 10 o'clock at night. I can't close at 11:15. 10 o'clock at night. Oh, and by the way, when you go into a restaurant, you wear a mask walking in, but when you sit down, you can take it off. I mean, these are the bureaucrats that are running our lives and demand, and we have to pay them, and then we have to do what they tell us to do. Amerika, we're spelling it wrong. Amerika.
Yes. Yes.
We need you. We need the Libertarian Party to have you as the presidential candidate. And a Tom Massey. This is, if we don't have that, we're just, again, look at this guy that won over there. And again, I couldn't stand either of them. The guy that won the Senate seat in Pennsylvania. Fetterman.
Yeah.
Look at the way this slob dresses. Look at the lack of dignity that he shows right in front of our face. That's how low America's gone.
And it worked.
Fetterman level.
Right. And it worked. Listen, I'm not a fan of Oz. I know him from my years at Fox. I think the Republicans made a mistake, but this was Trump's guy, and he has or had his thumb on the Republican Party. But Fetterman is about as far, he's farther to the left than Bernie Sanders. There's another Bernie Sanders in the Senate now, thanks to Trump fooling around with the Republican Party in Pennsylvania. But back to where we started. They both would vote to increase the size of government and to increase spending. But you're right. His sloppiness must appeal to people because he won. It's not even in doubt this morning.
Again, that is showing you how low America's gone. I go out, we go out to fine places, and you see guys our age wearing baseball caps. And young people wearing baseball caps on backwards. What are you waiting for? Put a catcher's mitt on, mask on your face? What are you wearing? And then you look back at our parents' generation. They're wearing Stetson hats, Borsalinos, everybody dressed fine. So Fetterman is a symbol of how low America's gone. The people have lost their style, their grace, and the culture. And it's going down in front of our eyes.
Yes.
Again, we need you, Judge. And I say this with all my heart, not because we're friends, we're paisanos. That has nothing to do with it. It has to do with who you are, what you represent, what you speak about, what you know, and how you are a true man of the passion, the spirit of the founding fathers and what this country was created for, and how we've lost it. And no one knows the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and what it means, and how we've lost it, and how it should be returned to us, other than you. I remember when this whole COVID thing was going on, and this arrogant guy who you knew in New York City, that's a judge, that forced this guy, if they're going to let him out of jail or something, he had to get vaccinated before.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yes, that judge is still my friend. We're actually having lunch in a couple of weeks. Yes, I do remember that. And obviously I heard about it for criticizing him. I don't care. And I don't think he really cares. He's got a lifetime judgeship. But people do that. Rational people robed, in this case, literally robed with power, look at the Constitution in such a screwy way that it doesn't mean what it says. They jump through hoops to find a way to justify the government. On the other hand, just 2 days ago, another federal judge in New York invalidated about 2/3 of the new New York gun law because it directly defied what the Supreme Court wrote. So sometimes federal judges will save us, and sometimes they are enablers of the government.
But again, it's a whole system. You got to vote for they're in the party.
Yes.
They're not for the people. They're for the party.
Yes.
And and we're not invited to the party.
We're not invited. You're right.
Judge,
You and, I
thanks so
have
much.
you and I have never been invited, and we never will be, and we probably don't want to go. We just
No.
want them to leave us alone.
That's right. And wherever we've been, we've never been part of it, the system. So you got to be part of the system to be into it. Judge, thanks so much for being on. And
Thank you, Gerald. One of the best conversations we've had. All the best to you.
all the best to you. See you next week.
You got it.